Today, June 13th, 2005, and I'm Louis Gwinzek, and I'll be interviewing Mr. Charles Doyle, and our camera operations is Ben Hansen. Mr. Doyle, would you like to tell us about your school experience?
My school experience, well, I went all through Lowell, kindergarten right on up to 12th grade. Then I went a month. I didn't even go. I graduated the 7th of June, and I went in the Marine Corps on the 3rd of July. So I went in the Marine Corps right after I got out of high school, and I wish I hadn't, but it's one of those things that I did. And I went through boot camp down Paris Island, and I survived it. And then when I got out, I had the GI Bill. I went to Michigan State for a couple of years, but my marks weren't too good, and I just couldn't study down there. Everything was going on, you know. It wasn't the best facilities I was living in at the time, but I transferred to Hillsdale, and I met a guy down there and told me, I said, how can you go through 4 years of college in 3 years? He said, I come back after my last class and I do the study, and I don't study at night. So I tried that, and my grades started going up. So, and boy, I'll tell you, the time goes so fast. And before you know it, you're graduating. Then you got to go out and go to work. I majored in sociology and history, and I had a job with the state social welfare when I got out of college. And my future bride lived in Detroit, and I took her home, and then on the way back through Lansing, I stopped at the welfare department, and I talked to the powers that be, took the test, passed it, and they gave me a job right away. And I went to work, I think the following week up in Muskegon, doing welfare work.
Did you hold any jobs while in high school?
Oh yes, all kinds of jobs, because during World War II, they were very plentiful. In fact, during I think when I was out in the 9th grade, I think I worked down at the canning factory, some unloading hoppers and tomatoes right along with the German prisoners of war. Okay. They were roundup troops, and how old would I be? About 15. They were only 17, 18-year-olds that fought under Rommel in the African campaign, and they were prisoners of war that they brought over every day from Lake Odessa. That's where they had camp, and they brought them. They were very good workers. And we worked through the tomatoes and the mincemeat. And then I think that winter I went to work for Kroger, worked for Kroger for a while, and then I worked for Carl Monroe as a string butcher. And other than that, those 2 summers I told you about before, I went down and worked on the boats, lake boats, and that was quite an experience for me.
For the Marine Corps, you said you joined after you graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Did you head down right away in the summer?
Oh yeah, it was hot.
Would you like to describe your first day at the
well, but you don't forget those things.
No.
No, I'll tell you, they backed that train up. We went by train, of course. And they pulled into this little station. The Embassy is the name of this town down there. And the Marine Corps had the big trucks out there, load us in those trucks. And when that sergeant got on that train, he wanted your attention right now. And everybody stood up except one guy. He literally ripped the shirt right off his back. And he probably remembers it too. And everything is done on the double. You're running, you're never walking, you're running, and they're breaking you in pretty good down there.
Did anybody else from Lowell go down?
Yeah, I had, in our platoon alone, there was 4 guys from Lowell. Myself, Bill Snyder, Wayne Dennis, and Lester Jones. Now, Lester Jones had dropped out of school in the 10th grade because school to him was boring and he wasn't getting too much out of school. although he was an A student, but he didn't like school. He went on. He was the only one in our grade that came up, through life, had a doctor, MD degree, and an LLD. He was both a medical doctor and an attorney.
How was the training like? Can you describe
Well,
the year of the training?
it was a pretty rough ride back then. And that was the mode of transportation back then. Very seldom did we get a chance to get on a plane, even though I was in the Air Wing. I did take a leave when I finally got my boot laced. You're supposed to get one on a boot camp after 10 weeks, but they sent me right up to, I went to Cherry Point, and then they sent me back to school detachment in Paris Island. And I went through clerk type of school down there and got out of there late November. And when they sent me back up to Cherry Point and assigned me to a radar installation up there, and when I went in and saw the first sergeant, I said to him, I want to go on leave. He says, what do you mean you want to go on leave? You just got here. I said, I haven't had a boot lift. He said, you haven't had a boot lift? I said, when you're going? I said, 3rd of July. Well, he said, you can take off and go 10 days. So you
said you were a clerk typist?
Yeah.
What was your obligations as a clerk?
Well, I mainly did the payroll, and we paid 5th and 20th through the month, and that was all in cash back then. Now, it automatically goes into your account. But I would go with the lieutenant over to get the money, and I can always remember, he'd say, hey, Doyle, please throw that money. We catch it. And then they'd pay it, and then once they got paid, the red line went through their name so that they got paid. That was one of them. Then we did a lot of correspondence too. Then we did court martial, and you couldn't make any strikeovers or errors on those court martials. If you did, you started over. Yeah. And they were some good.
Where was your training for clerk typist? That was
Right down in Paris Island.
Okay.
Actually, they got rid of all the women Marines after World War II. They discharged them all, and we used their porters down there, and they were pretty nice porters. They had the ironing boards, and I've ironed a lot of khakis and washed them, a lot of them. And of course, you have a regular laundry. You send your laundry to, every week. So, and if you want to do something extra, you've got the washing machine. This sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
As a clerk typist, you said Marines are always armed with a...
Well, regardless if you're a cook, I don't care what you are in the Marine Corps. If you're a cook, clerk typist, whatever you are, you always have a weapon. You always have a weapon.
Could you describe how the grease was on the...
Well, yeah, we got those new M1s in, and they were, brand new M1s, but they were covered with cosmoline. Now, cosmoline is a thick grease, and it protects, that metal. And we had to clean those up. And I had a few friends over in the other wing where they had their weapons out in the hangar, and they were cleaning it with aviation high-test gasoline. Well, the officer of the day came around. He said, what are you guys doing? He said, well, we're cleaning our weapons. What do you use? Gasoline. He said, get rid of that gas. He put them all on a summary court martial because they were using it inside the hangar, which is, you just don't do those things. And he lost the case. He lost the case because the guy, from Lowell, was a witness. He was a witness for the prosecution, and he is also a witness for the defense. And when the defense attorney got him up there, he said, "Can you honestly say that was gasoline or carbon test?" No, he couldn't say it was carbon test or gasoline. And that if it was carbon test, they were off, because that doesn't burn or doesn't explode or anything else. But he was a little bit worried there for a little while.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to clean your weapon?
Oh, I'll bet I was at it for at least a week. A week anyway. And then you had to make sure that you had it cleaned up. And then if it got too dry, then you had to make sure that you got some oil on it. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't rust, things like that.
After boot camp, were you stationed there?
Well, I was up there at Cherry Point, and that was the air wing of the East Coast for the Marine Corps. And I signed a contract with the Marine Corps that I would be in the air only, not land. So they more or less, I kept my obligation with them, but they still had too many guys in the service, and they didn't know what to do with it. And so they gave us a convenience of the government discharge that we got, and most of them, everybody took one, because you couldn't go overseas. They weren't sending any more people overseas. And that was at the time that Harry Truman wanted to get rid of the Marine Corps. People just didn't know what was going to happen, So I had a good friend that was in land. He went in, I went in July. He went in January, right from high school, and he got over to China. And he had pretty good duty over there. In fact, his name was Bob Donovan. He was one of the last Marines, actually, one of the last Americans that got out of China. They were in Tientsin, and of course that was a German city. And the Germans had it for a long time. And they had all of the mountains over there had caves in them, and they had a lot of munitions like hand grenades and shells, and whatever you want to call it. And they did guard duty over there in China. That's about all they did. And scare the communists away. Communists was over 200,000. I think they had 60 in there. But they had the 7th fleet was right outside, see, in the ocean. And the communists knew if they went in there, the 7th fleet would start firing on them, so they stayed their distance.
Now, both Parris Island and Cherry Point were in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Can you describe what they looked like? Were they on beaches?
Well, actually, there's no beaches down there at Parris Island. That's swamp water, like Hilton Head. I don't know if you've ever been to Hilton Head. And too bad that we didn't know that was going to be worth a lot of money. But nobody had any money anyway. But you could buy land down there in South Carolina after the war for a little bit of nothing. And a lot of people got it. They got that land, and Hilton Head is quite a resort community, you see. They got a lot of golf courses and things like that. Year round.
You mentioned Woodrow Wilson was thinking about discharging the Marine Corps.
Well, you mean Harry Truman?
Yes.
Well, he tried.
How did you guys feel? Like, was there?
Well, I didn't think it'd ever go through, because the Marine Corps was looked on by higher people than Harry Truman. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they had a lot of friends, and it was a good thing that they did keep the Marine Corps for the Korean War, because there was a lot of Marines that went in that Korean War.
When you guys were given leave, did you go back home? Or
well, we go over to surrounding communities and watch football games. High schools had football games on Friday night. We go over there, and they had a USO over there, and we, both places, up at Cherry Point, we go over to New Bern and down in Bear Sound, we went to, oh, I can't even think of it now. Small, they were small communities. But now, today, if you went down there to Bear Sound, they have moved the front gate way out to the highway now. That's quite a ways into the Bear Sound itself, but it's quite swampy. And through the, I don't know, the 50s or 60s, they had that platoon down there and got caught in swamps, and a few guys died, got drowned in it, and it was a big scandal. But the Marine Corps seems to handle it ever so often. Who knows?
How many times a year did you guys visit your family back in Michigan for your wild too?
I only came home once.
Okay, out of how many years was that?
Well, see, I was in just a little over a year. And everybody's, what are you doing home? What are you doing home? Hard to explain. You got discharged as a convenient of the government, got an honorable discharge, mustering out pay, and all the goodies that went with it, you know what I mean? And of course, it wasn't told at that time that if you didn't have a full year or whatever it was, that you were eligible for the draft, and the draft would pick you up. Well, I didn't want to, and this is right after I got out of school in 52. I went to the draft board and said, oh, I'm through college because we got deferment in college. So I said, I'm going to go over to the Marine Reserve and see what I can do over there. Well, I got over there, and they had just sent the 10th Rifle Company over to Korea. So I just missed that, and they were reforming the 10th Rifle Company there. I think I was the sixth one that got into the 10th Rifle Company there in 52. And I stayed in there for 3 years and went to different summer camps along the way. Little Creek, Virginia, and we went down to Paris Sound. The last year I skipped it because I was going to get out. I knew I was going to get out, you know.
What were your jobs?
I was a clerk guy.
Okay.
Clerk guy. Yeah, company clerk. And there wasn't that much to do, you know. Daily report, that's about it.
How were you guys treated? Like, how was the food? And how
Oh, I always liked food. Food was good. It depended, you know, in boot camp, it depended on what I want to say, what chow ball you got. Because some sergeants would put peanut butter or jam out on the table. You have bread and peanut butter sandwiches, and then some wouldn't.
Right.
And some of the food I wouldn't eat, like okra and things I wouldn't use, you know. But food, well, I went in the boot camp, and Phil Snyder, I don't know if you know him or not, he went in, I lost probably 20 pounds, he gained 20 pounds. Same food. Same food.
Wow.
And lost.
You had, did you ever tell African American troops?
No, they were so segregated when we were still down there. But boy, those guys were good. They were good drilling. They were tough. They were good and polished. Yeah, they were segregated. When we went down in 52, we flew down there to Savannah from Grand Rapids or Lansing. I forget now where we took off. I think we flew from Lansing to Savannah. And these kids, they were just in the Marine Corps, not too long, you know, they were 17, 18 years old. And they got out down there in Savannah and they said, Charlie, what does that mean over there? What is that color and white? What does that mean? And what are those two drinking fountains? I said, they didn't put that in the history books yet, did they? They didn't know what it's for. I said, well, they're still segregated down here.
Were they surprised to hear that?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They didn't know what was still going on. Yeah, no, they didn't.
Bill?
Oh, yeah, GI Bill. And when I got down to Michigan State, this one guy that was running for class president or something, he said, we gotta get more money out of Congress. We gotta get, it was giving us $65 a month and our full tuition, you know, and paid for full tuition and all the books and everything. And they just wrote the college a check for tuition and books. And we got all our books. We just go over and say what books we needed and we get them to the bookstore. Charge the government.
How was life different for you going from being into the military and going back to school?
Well, it was pretty rough because it was so cramped. We had a hospital unit that we were actually stayed in this hospital unit. And those bunks are about that far apart, you know, and they were double. And they had a place to study, but they had a poker game every night. There's no study. There's a poker game every night. A lot of GI back. And I saw this, well, while I was down in Michigan State, I saw the stadium being built, and a lot of buildings too. Because I can remember going to a football game down in Michigan State where you had bleachers in the end zone. And Michigan State, I have to bring that up too. They played Kentucky this one year, and Michigan State had a black guy, and they didn't want to play him too. They didn't want to play Michigan State. In fact, they said, we're not playing you next year because they had Michigan State is like
a segregation.
Yeah, segregation. But you know, that's all gone by now.
Yes.
You know.
How many years were you at Michigan State before you changed?
Two. Yeah, and I was down in the Hillsdale 2.5. Mm-hmm.
What was the difference for you?
Well, one thing, Hillsdale was a lot smaller, and the classes were smaller. And you got to know practically, well, there were only 1,000 down there at Hillsdale. And let me say this, they've got fraternities and sororities, and I'd say 90% of them belong to fraternities and sororities down at Hillsdale. Well, it's just about 10% in these larger colleges, like Michigan and State and things like that.
Did you belong to?
Yeah, I belong to Delta, which I can remember it cost me $59.50 a month, 2 meals a day, and my board. I mean, my room. That isn't too bad, $59. The government gave me, well, they upped it from $65 to $75. Then I got a job at the fraternity house washing dishes too.
Okay.
And that paid you $45 a month. And I didn't mind it at all because we had the other two guys, we made believe it was so hard and nobody else wanted to do a job. It was an easy job and we got first on the food and everything else. So. And we had a regular, I don't know what you want to look, built like process where the guys do the silverware, do the glasses, we just played and got out of there in no time at all. So
After you graduated, what kind of job did you?
well, it was a social welfare. It was social. I worked up in Muskegon for the state of Michigan and doing age-dependent children, age blind, age disabled. Any welfare program. But I'll tell you, it isn't like what you would learn in college. It wasn't to me. The ones I really wanted to help, I couldn't. They weren't eligible. And the ones that were eligible, I'll tell you, they were cheating the welfare system, as far as I'm concerned. Especially those girls. I mean, they had so many babies, or they had so many different husbands, they didn't know who the husbands were. So,
And how long did you work for?
not very long. I was up there. I started last of January, and I came back the last of November, back to Lowell.
What job did you
Here, I started selling cars.
Okay.
Back here for finance. And I stayed in that business for 10 years. And I got out of it in 1960. that line comes in below, you know, the high line, goes out, goes across the river and goes south. I got all the right of way work on that one, and I had to get some over to, east of, town. Well, I'm trying to think, I had to buy some land for a substation and bring another line in for them. And then I went to work over bringing a line down from the north into Grand Haven and out Grand Haven to Zealand, from Zealand to their gas wells down there in, well, just a little bit south of Wolverine. Now, Wolverine today is the third largest distributor of power there is. There's Detroit, Edison, Consumers Energy, and Wolverine Electric. And they've got quite a bit of, you know, a lot of consumers up along Wolverine there.
Did working, like, when you were in the Marines, did that help you with your jobs afterwards?
You know, yeah, when I got into the post office, you know, there's a lot of file work and that work that I learned in the Marine Corps helped me over there. And I was there for 25 years, so, you know, you learn something new every day. As far as I'm concerned. If you don't learn something every day, you're not worth your salt. You're going to find something new every day. You think, oh, everything has been thought. Oh, no. You're going to see things 50 years from now that you wouldn't even believe. You know, just like the guy says, what his grandkids are going to say, what is a computer? What's the internet? That's all going to be gone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, there's the future out there. It's going to blow your mind. I'll tell you, when we were kids, if a plane flew over town, my God, you'd run outside to see if you could see it. It was a big thing, an airplane. Not anymore.
No. So, after you worked as postmaster, then did you retire? Or?
Yeah, I retired right over there. I was there for 25 years, 1965, 1990. And I didn't think I'd live this long. And I've been gone 15 years. Well, 15 years, when you start school, see?
Yeah. 90.
I know that. That's right. But boy, the time just seems to fly by. But I always said you have to do something. And I had some good offers and people wanted me to go to work for them, but I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to get settled with something I didn't want to do. Or something, you know, that I had to do. I don't mind doing craft work where I can sell it on the side. I made a lot of stamp plaques, and I sold them. Now I've been into making, I had a lot of coins, and I've been making coin necklaces. You know, Kennedy has, and the Buffalo nickel, and that sort of thing. Now you're going to be around the river walk, you come over and buy your girlfriend a necklace.
You said you're involved in the community, like through Rotary and.
Oh yeah, I've been in Rotary since 1967. Yeah, and as I say, it sounds like a long time, but it isn't. You know, like yesterday. But and I've been on the city council for 9.5 years. I've been on Light Power Board for 9.5 years. I got involved with the Arts Council, and we got it started up. There was just a handful of us in that where, well, we had to go around and ask for money to get the art train in the first time around. And my job was to go to the bank and get some money from Harold Art for the art train. I got $1,000 from the bank. And I worked on the Y program for a number of years, getting soliciting funds. And we used to do a lot of, even when I was in the post office, we did community chest work. And that was, I got them all to go on a more or less plan where they put so much money out of their check every month into the community chest, but build it up quite great. And we've got, in Doyle, we've got quite a bit of money. Do you realize, when I went into the Rotary Club, they were so damn broke, they couldn't pay the Legion for the rent on that building up there. You know where it was, up there, the skating rink. And they were a good, let's say they liked their food. So I'd say they got together every Wednesday, but they weren't doing too much for the community. Well, since that time, my God, they have got over $200,000 for the Rotary has for a scholarship program. They've given away, well, they've had Jim Cook out there to the auctions that he's had. He's made them over 125,000, and they've given that money's gone to different programs around the country. And well, it's just, well, they built 2 homes, Habitat homes here in town with the money that we've raised. So we've had that Falsford Festival, we make our auction, and also we sell those gift packs at Christmas time from Christmas. And I'll tell you, we'll never be broke again, I don't think. Not right away.
When you look back to your experience in the Marine Corps, what would you say is your most memorable experience?
Well, I think most memorable experience is the people you met while you're in there, and you know, I never knew a lot of guys in New York City, and I didn't know how they lived, and I found out they don't live much different than we do. You know, they do, and they have jobs there. One guy was a window dresser, where they put the models out and dress them, and, you know, and fix the windows up. He had a job, a good job. He said it paid him well. In fact, he was going to keep on once he got out of the Marine Corps. And I never met anybody from Brooklyn or the Bronx or any of those places. Danny Holland was in our office too, and he was from the Bronx. And his mother was Irish, right? I think she was right from Ireland. And he would tell me about getting a bucket of beer. Now, I didn't know what a bucket of beer. Did you ever hear about it? Well, you do in the city, see. There was a regular bucket that these guys would take to the tavern, and they'd fill that bucket of draft beer up and take it home. I know. And I don't know what it cost back then. It wasn't too expensive. But he said he'd have to run over there to the tavern and get his mother a bucket of beer. I thought it was kind of strange,
Yeah,
you know. Because we had, well, we got a lot stricter laws. And when worked on the lake boats, when those guys were coming home from school, they were stopping in the bars. It was 18 years old over there. And these guys were 18 and they were still in school, but they were still stopping in the bar, getting a draft or 2. Well, they tried it in Michigan, but they couldn't get the vote out, so they put it back to 21. Which I don't think is bad. Someday they're going to change the law, as far as I'm concerned, on driving too. That's going to go up. Because there's too many people on the road. Oh, there's too many people. And I think you guys aren't too bad for those girls. Those girls are terrible. They are terrible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, they drive just as fast in the winter time as they do in the summertime. One girl passed me, I was going down on California, she passed me. I'm 37. Oh boy, honey, you better watch out, it's snowing pretty good. I went down a couple more miles, she's upside down with that car. But I don't think she got hurt, but by God, she flipped it. And these girls really got a heavy foot.
Would you like to share anything about your family?
Oh, my sister used to live here. She was married to one of the Roths in the funeral business, and my brother was here. He worked for Runciman for quite a while, and then he went to work for the Union Bank, and well, we used to have family picnics when the other relatives, we would call them not in-laws, we call them outlaws, come to town. They had 5 acres out there on Bailey Drive. We'd have Sunday night picnics out there. And have hot dogs and potato salad and sit around the campfire, Mm-hmm. Those things you would remember. And we used to go a lot on picnics too, when the kids were small. Either out Townsend Park or Felsburg Park or someplace. And then when the kids were growing up, we started going up to Pentwater for a week, or maybe 10 days. And we went up there 1 year. And I think that we had 15 days up there. And after we were there 11 days, and 10 of it had rained, I said, let's go home. Then it's solid rain. Yeah. But other than that, I've seen tremendous changes in this town. I mean, the school has done a lot, bringing more people in new homes and things like that. The people down here are merchants. I'll tell you, you don't see a bad store at all.
No.
And then nothing looks junky anymore. And I think that guy in the diner does a hell of a job. He's a regular merchandiser. And Liz is doing a hell of a job over there at the chamber, keeping things going from the city of Lowell. And other than that, the parades are well attended. And just like she says, why do we want to have a 4th of July? Everybody has a 4th of July. Let's just have it one more week later. Mm-hmm. So that's what she did. And she's going to have fireworks a week later. So, and she seems to get a lot of help too. I was helping her sell those duck tickets last year. And Carolyn Anderson came along. He said, I haven't got any money. I go down to the bank. You got ATM machines. Go get some money and come back. He did. He won $1,000. But he didn't answer the phone. His wife answered the phone. And he said, all we got is this telephone number on the back of this ticket. He said, well, what does it win? The girl says $1,000. His wife said, I'll take it. She got $1,000.
I'd like to thank you for sharing your story.
Well, yeah, and it's been my pleasure too. I have written a few things on. My wife and I took a 6,000-mile Amtrak vacation last August, and we went by Amtrak from Grand Rapids, Chicago to LA, Seattle, and Seattle back to Chicago, and it was an experience in itself. We had robbers on the train, and we went through forest fires, and we had to get off the train because one of the fires and the forest were in the tunnels, so they had to bus us up from the state of Oregon and Washington. It took from 10 in the morning to 10:30 at night. I know. Yeah. But we saw a lot of Seattle. And now I can say I was in every state of the Union. I've been in every state of the Union. And I'm not any richer for it. No. But I wanted to go across the United States by train. And I got that out of it. That's a lot of fun. I used to travel all the time on the train. In fact, when the last time we came up from Paris Island, we took the train. We had Pullman on the way up. When you go Pullman, God, you're eating the best meals. And course, they're easy to get in. And then when we went down to summer camp one year, at Little Creek, Virginia, we were supposed to fly from Grand Rapids, and they said, well, they called me out and they said, be down here, we're going to take you by bus down to Kalamazoo to catch a train into Chicago. And they were making up a military special for the guys out of Marine Reserve, out of Wisconsin and Michigan. And we had a military special. It had the MPs on, you couldn't get off the train, you couldn't get on it. And, I mean, you did stop. It just kept right on going through. And it really went through fast. And seeing that I was a corporal, I was a ranking NCO on that train, because all the officers had flown down there. So they gave me a compartment. That was a nice compartment. But I didn't get it coming home. The officers got it. But we had fun. Well, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you again.
Yeah. Hey, listen, any of you guys interested in going to a baseball game?
The following oral military history project is a series of documentaries in association with the Lowell area men and women who proudly served and sacrificed part of their lives to preserve the opportunities for all of us to build our businesses and raise our families under a blanket of freedom. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.